Hello guys, we're going to do a game review today, and this is me against a Tudon. I do have another account that I actually use to play even games on, and this is just a review and how Dans think, like lower Dans, maybe like around the EGF showdown, maybe a little higher, we think. I do think on this other account I can probably get to like 3 or 4 Dan eventually. But let's actually just start. This is even game. I'm black, he's white. So I go here. By the way, I start off with, since there's no Comey, I start off with like 6.5. Black plus 6.5. I go here. He goes here. I go here. Pretty typical start. I start with this approach. He does the typical tuck under and Joseki. I really like this for me because this low-high combination is very, very good. He does this. I do this. I'm basically trying to solidify this corner and this side. So I could actually go here as well. And I think the optimal choice, now that I review the game here, is actually to go here. Because that is actually a pretty good shape. He would probably have to do this. Then after that, I would probably just secure this corner. Or if I really wanted this corner, I could play something like this. But I think the optimal move for me was actually there. It was not to, is here, and not to actually kick. Up here, he goes here, I go here, and this move, you want this instead of this. Because this makes it slightly harder to invade. And basically this combination of high-low and then high-high, it sets up this territory very well. So he goes, I go here, he goes there. That's perfectly fine. So I'm going to approach on this side. He's going to jump. I'm going to take the regular Joseki here. I know that a lot of people like this move. And that's perfectly fine. But here, I just like this shape more. And the difference is like 1/10 of a point, so it's not going to bother me all that much. Then he does the 3-3 invasion. Now, I think this 3-3 invasion is pretty good. There's no way for me to kill this 3-3 invasion. So that is a very, very efficient invasion. This I think might have been okay as well because you have, I would probably go up here, and you could kind of just like do this and you get this territory. I think that's okay as well. But he he decides to invade the 3-3. I block on this side to maybe get some of this territory. And then of course I'm going to do the double Hane. This is where a lot of people make mistakes. Easily the best way to play this is just this basic thing. Yes, I get the side, but this territory is definitely not solidified. And plus, you have this later on as well. So that is easily the best way to play this. But, a lot of people, even Dan players, actually make a lot of mistakes here. That is a big mistake. That actually loses you quite a few points. Because if you do this, and I connect, now what are you going to do? If you do this like he did, yes, you get this, but instead of just giving me 2 stones, you've given me 3 stones, and it makes my shape a lot stronger. Plus over here, you don't have much room for expansion. So, and you really can't do anything else because if you do this, I can either go out here or go out here. I don't know, I think this ladder does. I'm not really sure. I would have to calculate if this ladder works or not. If this ladder doesn't work, I would obviously go here. If the ladder does work, I would just take the ladder. You actually have to connect, which actually gives me another Tiger's Mouth Hane. And all you get is this little corner, and I have so much influence out here, and this is very, very good for black. So that's definitely not an acceptable result for white. So he takes this option. As you can see, with this, I go from plus 4.1 to plus 8.4. So that loses a lot of points right there. So he does this, and as you can see, now I'm at plus 9.0. So this is not a good result for him. And plus he has to do this because if I come over here, that's a forcing move, and that would actually be Sente on him because he can't actually make this survive if I play another move. So he loses quite a lot over there. I invade. Now, I think the best move here would actually be to come up because this actually solidifies this territory and it makes a little bit of a moyo here. But I decided to invade here. It's not too much of a loss. He goes here, which is the right play. I jump over. the one space invade. I think if I were to invade here, I think this actually might be the better invasion. Yes, he could go over here, but I have like moves like this. I'm not too big of a fan of this move because it traps me pretty low, but it does take away some of his base. And plus, if I happen to do this, he can always do this. And now, like, if I don't answer, he can threaten this group a little bit. So I choose this invasion in the center, and that's okay for me. He does this. I jump up. I don't know if this is the right move. This might have been better. I jump up. He does this. I'm going to go ahead and take the little Sentes now to form some eyes. That's a bad move. That's definitely a bad move because it takes away the possibility of this later. I make this move a lot because like I want to establish some eye space down here, but technically this move still exists. So that's not a good move. I mean, he should have just blocked, honestly. He really just should have blocked or just like done something else. But he does this move here, which actually lets me come in. I do believe that this move, which actually solidifies at least some eye space down here, is actually bigger than this move. Because even though you can threaten this group, you can't really threaten it all that much. So he does that, which I don't believe is actually critical at this point. I'm going to do that just to get him back. He does that. I'm going to go here, and then I want to protect the cut. However, protecting the cut is not great. I should just go here and jump out. Because if he does this, obviously that protects the cut as well, obviously. So I should have just jumped out. This is not an efficient way to protect. You do need to protect this cut, but this is not an efficient way to protect this cut. I should have protected the cut this way. You always want to look at more efficient ways of. You definitely want to look at more efficient ways of doing moves, and this is by far the more efficient way to protect the cut than this. So I messed up there. I do this. He does that move. I think like this move is actually better. It's just more solid, but it's not that big of a difference. It's really not that big of a difference. That's a bad move. There's like Agi in here. There's more like options in Agi in here if you don't make me strong. Yes, he's trying to prevent me from going under, but me connecting, I mean, your stone's still not very strong here. So that's actually a bad move, just makes me stronger. So he jumps up. I obviously am going to take the Hane first. And realistically here, I mean, I would probably just cap if I were him. I'm not going to do this right now. That's just not good for me. So I think this was definitely I think this was definitely a little bit of a mistake because that lets me jump up and separate the two groups. And your group here still isn't that strong. He does this. I think this is probably the best move right now. But this move isn't too bad because it's pretty big on the outside. Gives me a little bit of territory and shrinks his territory. So he does the Hane. I'm going to do that. And of course, like I'm going to fix this cut right here. I don't really need to fix this cut, but I'm going to go up here. Definitely going to go up here. And that is the correct move. It kind of gets me out of the entrapment encirclement. And it also like kind of cuts this group off as well. So like that move does serve two purposes. I know a lot of lower rank players would just do this. But yes, that does protect the cut a little stronger, and it basically guarantees you alive. But you know, then you kind of like he can seal you in, or he can just ignore you if you do this and play somewhere else, which is probably what I would do if I was white. So I do this. He jumps up. This is not a great move right now. I don't. It's just not big enough. But I mean, it does secure me, and it does get rid of some of his territory, but it's not enough points. And yeah, this stuff like this is a lot bigger, so I think I probably should have just kept on jumping out here or kept on jumping out this way. So this is not a big enough move for me. He does that. I'm going to do that. I think here, these three stones, like 10, 15 points, maybe not that big right now. So I don't know if I should have done that or not. That might have been the better move, definitely. But I'm just going to do this. It's definitely a little bit of a loss for me, but I'm going to do this. He does this. I make a big mistake here. I should have connected here. This isn't that big of a deal. I definitely should have connected there. I go wrong. I do the wrong move. And I forgot about that move. So I have to connect, and he has to push. So now he's actually disconnected the stone. Now the thing is, like, generally, like, it's not that large. You can actually reduce his territory up here, so it's not that big of a deal for me. So I do this. I'm not going to try to just run the stone out. I don't want to get capped. So it was either like this move or this move. And I chose the outer one because it's harder to kill. He does that. I'm going to take the points first, but realistically I should have done this. Realistically, I definitely should have done that. But I'm going to take the points. That's a pretty bad move for me. Here is where he actually messed up. In this case, you just connect. Yeah, you definitely just connect. It makes you a lot stronger towards these two stones out here. Because like this is Gote anyways, and you still have a cut here, which I do actually make use of in the future. So here, even though like you lose a couple of points down here, the connection and the strength up here is more important. Sometimes getting a couple of points is more important, but in this case, because these two stones are weak, this connection and strength is a lot more important. So he does this, and then I jump out, obviously. I'm definitely not going to play over here and let him cap me or something. That would be really bad, and it would essentially just kill me. So I'm going to jump out. He does this, and then that's fine. I connect. He does this. That's a little slow. That's a little bit slow, honestly. I think like I probably should have just done this first, because that does look like more of a Sente move anyways. So I probably should have done that first. If he tries to do something like this, I mean, this is just, you can see that this is just not going to work, because first of all, like, just that's not going to work. Although that would damage me out here. But even if I, like, tried something else, like, even if I did this, or, like, I would probably just, like, go out here, or, like, maybe if I just, like, do this by itself. I might even do this by itself, you know. And that just would not work all that well for him. Because he actually has to connect, you know, and then if I do this, then, you know, this is actually connected back. And he doesn't really gain that much out here. If he does this, I'm just going to take this, and now that's threatened as well. So I definitely should have just done that. That was the right move, because it also fixes this problem down here. So I curl. That's a wrong move by me. He does that. I'm going to Atari this, which is probably also a little bit, it's too slow, I think. I probably should have just jumped this way. Probably should have jumped that way. This is a little too slow. He goes ahead and he plays this move, which is fine. I'm going to take the two stones. He does this. I definitely should have done this. That gives him quite a bit of trouble. I did eventually do that later, but this is a wrong move because, you know, like, it still doesn't really solidify this piece down here because he still has a ko. This ko is very light for him, very heavy for me. So he does that. I'm going to do this first and then jump out just to secure this group. I'm a little bit afraid that if he caps, it's going to be hard to make eyes in here. It probably isn't that hard, but I would have to do some damaging moves, which I don't really want to do. So I jump out. He does that, which is kind of small right now. Realistically, I definitely should have just ignored him at this point. And when I do this, he should have just ignored me at this point, because this move isn't that big. It's like maybe 4 or 5 points. And right now, like, all these moves out here are far, far bigger. But you can see he blocks. He tries to get those points. This really doesn't affect me all that much, because I'm definitely not going to just take a Gote here. So since I take the Sente, I actually do this important move. He does this, I'm going to come out. He does this, I'm going to come out more. Each time he does this, I go up a couple of points, because like he still hasn't fixed this thing yet. This is basically connected right now. There's no threat onto this. And there is a ko here. There is actually a ko here, but this is also pretty threatening for him. So he does this, I'm going to take, he connects. Of course, he doesn't want me to do this because that's really bad for him. So like if he does some kind of ko here, I'm just going to do this. And if he takes this, I'm going to take this. And that's really, really bad for him. And that's not worth this. So essentially, and that's the key to this thing. Like, even though this ko is pretty light for him overall, like when I take it, he can't just like find another ko threat right away. He has to connect this. Of course, I'm going to cut. Then he takes this ko. And then I'm going to cut here. That's Sente for me. And if he takes this, I'm just going to take these two, right? So that's Sente for me. He has to connect this. I'm going to take this. And then he does this. I make a mistake here and just connect. I think there's definitely like better moves I could do like this. But that realistically, I guess like if I do this, then yeah, I'm dead if I do that. So I can't really do that. I could try to fight with him here, but I don't really want to risk this group right now. That's actually fairly large. But so I actually, when he does that, I just connect. And this group is still a little bit not that great off here. Disconnecting this stone isn't that big. I have the ability to live here, and I also have the ability just to reconnect here. So he does this, and I do this. I think I probably should have done something out here, but still, I just want to make sure that these are safe. That's an easy connection right there. So he does that. I'm going to come out because I don't want him to Atari. Now this group is basically alive, so he doesn't have too much threat. He does that. I'm going to jump in because I don't want him to make these points here. He does that. I'm going to block, and he does this. So Atari, this is where he makes the critical mistake. I jump, and he does that. Now, he could actually do this. That would actually fix a lot of the errors, because if I do this, this doesn't work. He does actually, he can actually do that. That would fix a lot of the errors. I wouldn't be able to disconnect. I would probably have to do something like this. And that's actually not bad for me, because you can actually see like I'm building the Moyo out here. I'm definitely building Moyo out here. If he actually does this, I'll probably fly down over here and build some territory. So that's what I was actually kind of planning to do. He does that, which isn't too bad, but when I do this, you cannot connect the bottom. So obviously you're supposed to do this. I don't know what you're supposed to do. Like when I do that, I guess you're supposed to do this. I'm going to cut. You generally don't run these two stones because that doesn't really bode well for too well for you. Yeah, it doesn't really bode that well for you if you try to do this. You generally don't try to run this stone because like that just leaves a lot of to be desired. You essentially like I would cut, and you would probably take Sente to fly out here or something to increase your territory here. And then decrease my territory here. Because running those two stones, I don't think is that smart of a choice. But he makes a critical game-ending mistake here by connecting these two stones. Obviously, if I do this, the move here is actually just to do this. Let me take and then go back. But because if you do this, then you lose all of this and you lose the game. But at this point, when I played this, he did actually, when I played this, he did actually resign. So that was the game. That was the critical mistake that ended the game right here, because that gives me 10 more points, and there's no way he's going to get that back. But even if it didn't end the game, I think Black is a little bit ahead, because Black has plenty of influence out here. He can make some territory out here, and I think Black just is out territorying White at this point. So that is the kind of the review of the 2D game. There wasn't a lot of fighting, but there's a lot of positional jockeying, a lot of smaller mistakes we actually made. Basically, we didn't really play a lot of the times we just didn't really play fast enough. So not like in terms of like speed, like seconds per move, but we didn't actually play like intrinsic speed. Like we should have jumped, and then we should have jumped 2. We jumped 1, or like I had made this move, maybe I should have jumped out here. So like it wasn't like flexible. Neither of us played really flexible enough. I ended up winning, catching him on a critical mistake, but I was a little bit ahead anyways, and I was a little bit ahead because he took too many gotes. In Dan level play. And yes, that is still a thing in like Dan level play. Like gotes will actually win you a game, and that's how I kind of stayed ahead for most of the game. There was a lot of like playing here where I messed up, and definitely like not Atariing this, I messed up. But overall, a pretty solid game. Not like a huge fighting game, but a pretty solid game where you can see like how Dan level players play. If you're like a lower SDK player or DDK player compared to the moves that you would have actually played in this game, maybe like review it on Katago and see like why our moves are better than yours, and like how the suggested AI moves would actually be better than ours, and that's how you would actually improve. So nice review of a 2D game. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button, and I will be back with a stream or another content in a while.